All right, so in this example, Leisure Travel Service has compiled some data about their ad expenditures versus annual profit. And both of these are measured in thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars. That's important to remember. And we're trying to find or they're trying to find some sort of correlation between ad expenditure and annual profit. So what we want to do is see if we can find an equation for a least squares line that fits this data. So I'm just going to take the data straight out of one table and put it in another, okay? So I'm going to put all the x values in here. So 12, 14, 17, 21, 26, and 30. Okay, and then the corresponding y values are 60, 70, 90, 100, 100, and 120. Okay. So now we can fill out the table and come up with all those constants that we need in order to use the formula to solve for the slope and y-intercept of the best fit line. So let's start by just adding up all of the x values. So if I add these all up, I get 120. If I add up all the y values, I get 540. Now I also need the sum of x squared, so I'm going to square all the x values. So I get 144, 196, 289. Let's see, this is 441. Square 26 and I get 676. Square 30 and I get 900. And then I'm just going to add up all those numbers. I get 2,646. All right, and next thing I'm going to do is take x times y. So 12 times 60, that's 720. 14 times 70, I get 980, and so on. I'm just taking the x value times the y value. Okay, 2100, 2600, and 3600. Okay. So now I'm just going to add up, I'll add that column as well. So we get 11,530. Okay. So that gives us all the values that we need in order to set up the system of linear equations we need to solve to find the slope and y-intercept of the best fit line. All right, now we also need the number of data points. Now we have 6, it looks like. So n is equal to 6, right? Just because there are 6 data points. N equals 6. So we need that as well. So we're just going to use the formula. We're going to have n times b, so 6b, and then plus the sum of the x, 120, times m is equal to the sum of all the y values, which is 540. Okay, that's our first equation. All right, now we need the sum of all the x values, which is 120 times b, plus, let's see, it's the sum of all the x squared values, which is 2646m, is equal to the sum of the xy values. So that's 11,530. Okay, so we need to solve that system of linear equations. And we could do it either by elimination or substitution. I think I'm going to do this by substitution. So I'm going to take this first equation, I'm going to rearrange it. It looks like it would be pretty easy to solve for b. So I'm going to just solve for b. So I get 6b is equal to, I'm going to subtract 120m from both sides. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 6. All right, so I get b is equal to negative 20m plus 90. And then I can use that b value and substitute in the second equation for b. So I'll get 120 times minus 20m plus 90 plus 2,646m is equal to 11,530. All right, so now I have an equation that's just in the variable m, and we can solve for m. All right, so I'm going to distribute the 120 through the parentheses, first of all. So what do I get? I get minus 2,400 m plus 10800. I take 90 times 120. And then I have a 2,646M is equal to 11,530. I can combine the two the like terms here, this negative 2400M and the 2646M, and I get 246M is equal to, and I can subtract 10,800 from both sides. So then I get 730 on the other side. And then dividing both sides by 246, I get M is equal to 2.967. Okay, so that's the slope of the line that I need, and then I just need the y-intercept, right? So I'm just going to take that value for M, plug it into this equation here for B, right? So I get B is equal to minus 20 times the M value, 2.967 plus 90. Okay, and so I get B is equal to 30.65. All right, so now I'm ready to write my equation, write the equation for my line. So it's y equals mx plus b, right? So I get y is equal to 2.967, that's our slope, times x. X is our ad expenditure, right? And plus the b, which is 30.65. Okay, so there's the equation for the best fit line, where y is the annual profit, right? So this y value is the annual profit, and the x value is the ad expenditure. Okay. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind because it means something. Those x and y values mean something. All right, so the next part B is just asking us to draw a scatter plot of the data. Okay, so we're given all this data. I'm just going to draw a scatter plot, and I'm going to draw the least squares line for this data. Okay. Okay, so what I've done is I've drawn my x and y axes and given them some scale. All right. And then I've taken the data from this original table and plotted those data points. Now I also need to graph my least squares line. All right, so I'm going to take this line that I found in part A, and I'm just going to calculate a couple of points. I just need 2 points to calculate or to plot a line, right? So I'm just going to pick a couple of points. So I just picked 15 and 30 and plug those values into the equation that I got in part A. So when I do that, I got 75.16. And when I plug in 30, I get 119.7. All right, so let's plot those points as well. So at 15, which is right between 10 and 20, so I needed about 75. Okay, so 75, so there's 70, so 75 is about here. So that's 1 point on the least squares line. And then the other one is at 30, 119.7. So that's really close to 120, right? So I'm practically right on top of that, maybe a little bit below. And so if I connect those two red dots, that will be my least fit line. Now it's a little tricky here to connect it with a straight line since I don't have a straight edge here, but let me just sort of sketch the line in here. You get the idea. You can use a ruler when you do it. And there's my line. That's my least squares best fit line. All right, so that takes care of that. And then what do we need to do in part C? It says use the results obtained from part A to predict leisure travel's annual profit if they spend an annual advertising budget of $20,000. Okay. So remember that our ad expenditure and our annual profit are both in thousands of dollars. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 20, right? So this is x is equal to 20, all right? The way I've defined my variable when I came up with my equation. All right, so I'm going to take y is equal to 2.967, which is the slope I calculated, times 20, right, for $20,000, and plus 30.65. Okay, so when I calculate that, I get 90, but I have to remember that that's in thousands of dollars. So this is 90,000. Okay, that's 90,000. So if we spend $20,000 on advertising, then we should expect to get an annual profit, if this correlation holds, of $90,000. Okay. All right. So that's really it. It's kind of a lot of number crunching. And you can take a look at the discussion question. There's really only one discussion question. It's really just a matter of, just practicing using that formula, figuring out how to calculate the numbers, and put them into the formula and solve that system of linear equations for the slope and the y-intercept of your least squares line. And then you got it. All right. So that's all I have for this lecture, and I'll meet you in class for the discussion questions.